What's up, comic and pop culture fans? This is James with Midhunter Comics, and today we're going to talk about when to sell a comic raw and when to risk going through getting it slabbed and sold once it's graded. It's really simpler than you'd think, so I actually grabbed 8 comics that I had from my to-be-sold raw pile and my to-be-pressed and graded pile. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to tell you why I had them in each particular pile. You got to remember how much you paid for the book, how much risk there's going to be in getting something graded, and what percentage of profit are you going to get in trying to move it raw versus going through that risk to get it graded. Let's get us started off today with the first one here. We've got New Avengers issue 7. It's the first appearance of the Illuminati, a book that has actually taken a considerable dive in value in the recent year. I paid $15 for this book, so let's talk about what sort of profit I could get if I were to move it raw versus going through the steps to get it graded. There are some tools that I like to use that you don't have to, but they certainly make it a lot easier. I like using GoCollect.com because it gives me the actual recent slabbed, graded comic book data. And I like certain things like KeyCollector.com, which not only tell me the book's key significance, but it also gives you an idea of price range. Of course, you can always at any time do a reverse eBay search on recently sold listings and find that out completely for free. Like I said, I spent $15 on this book. Now, you need to be able to have a grasp of how good your book is. That's one of the benefits of getting it grading is you don't have to guess. It tells you exactly what's wrong or what's perfect about a book. At this point in my collecting experience, I trust my grading extremely well. So I would actually call this book a 9.4 or a 9.6. It is even possible that it could get a 9.8, but with how harsh the grading has been lately, I've been telling myself not to bank on the more unlikely outcome, but to really strap in and prepare yourself for a realistic outcome. So that's why, even though I think this book has a shot at a 9.8, I tell myself 9.4, 9.6. When you look up near mint or near mint plus raw copies, you're looking at getting an easy $30 out of this book. I could sell it for $30. That's a profit of about $15 profit. I would be doubling my money. If I were to spend $10 to get it pressed, $20 to get it submitted to CGC, and even forgetting any sort of shipping fees and everything, if this were to get a 9.4, the 90-day average from this book is actually only about $41. In this particular example, I would have lost $4 if this got a 9.4. Granted, if this got a 9.8, it's about a $100 book, which actually used to be considerably higher, but as I mentioned, this book has gone down notably. So of course, if this got a 9.8, I could be profiting over $50. However, I do not slab books unless there's a certain risk factor that I can take. There are examples in this stack that I'm going to show you where the risk is low enough that I can absolutely take a shot at getting it slabbed and try to sell it and will make more money than moving it raw. But for this book, we would keep it and sell it raw because of that. And I think you'll find with a lot of newer books that can be the case. Here we've got a newsstand copy of Captain Atom number 12. This is the first appearance of Major Force, a very, very underrated key. It actually made its way onto my top 10 underrated DC key list. I bought it for about $6. And this very high grade near mint plus copies, they sell for anywhere between 5 and 10. Let's meet in the middle and call it $7. So if I wanted to move it raw, it would probably net me approximately $1 profit, right? Doesn't really make sense to sell this raw. Let's talk about the risk of getting it graded. I'm really glad I picked this book as an example because there is no recent 9.8 or 9.6 data. If it got a 9.8, 9.6, or 9.4, you'd be pricing it blindly pretty much and just testing the waters to see how much someone would pay for that. They exist on the census, but I guess everyone's just keeping them for their private collection because I can't find the sales data. I'm going to play it safe and say that if this book let's say I think it can get a 9.6. Let's say it gets the 9.6. I'd probably charge something like $80 for the book. If it got the 9.8, I'd put like $200 on it. Now, luckily, I can tell, because I've got an eye for this now, that this book is going to be better than a 9.4, or at least a 9.4. So, I spent $6. You know, I can plug 20 if I want to get it pressed, maybe 30 total dollars into this book, and play that risk, because even if it gets a 9.4, I believe I should be able to get $80 out of that. If I can get $80 for a 9.4 or 9.6, my profit would be $39. A whole lot better than the $1 of trying to sell it raw. This one I would get graded. Let's keep it going here. We got Space Family Robinson #1. This is a particularly interesting book because it's from 1962. It's low distribution. It's not Marvel. It's not DC. It's a gold key book. So the market for something like this is less. Most collectors go for the DC or Marvel stuff. And when you look up the raw and graded data, it reflects it. There's not much out there because also it is low distribution. That's a perfect factor for our next discussion here. So I spent $150 on this book. I think the grade is right about a 6.5 to a 7.0. Let's call it a 7.0 after a clean and press. The raw values of a book in this grade go for about $200 in this grade. And from the looks of it, looks like you should be able to get $200 pretty easily. So you can make a respectable $50 profit off of trying to move this one raw. This book is so scarce that most of the graded copies out there are 3.5, 4.0, 4.5, 5, maybe a 6. When it starts getting into the higher ranges, there is a really noticeable jump in value. Now, I think I can probably get, after a clean and press, a 7 out of this book. I do believe. Recent sales data would show me that if this got a 7.0, it might take a little while to move because it's not Marvel or DC, but I could actually get $500 out of this. If this got a 7.0 and I charged $500 for this, that $50 profit I could have made raw is nothing compared to the $300 I could make after pressing, cleaning, and grading. This is what I would consider a no-brainer. One of the things that is obviously beneficial to this book is I bought it really low. These books go for $200, $250 raw in this condition, and I got it for $150. Here's one where there are definitely more notable copies than something more under the radar like Space Family Robinson. This is the second appearance of Black Adam ever, and in a massive time hop. This is a really big key. Really almost minty copies will sell from $600 to $700. I did particularly well on this book, and I actually got it for about $350, which is pretty wild when I look at the book, count the pages, look at everything, and not only do I think it can get white pages, but I think the book's about a 9.2 or a 9.4. With a clean and press, I might be able to lock in that 9.4 pretty steadily. You can't always bank on that though, but I feel pretty confident about that. The book is actually pretty darn gorgeous, and that's why I think it might stand a chance at the 9.4. $600 I could sell that. That's a profit of $245, and I don't have to lift a finger. This book, this practically takes care of itself. This is going to be one where I could kind of go either way. I could make a killing raw, and I could make a killing slabbed. Check it out. If this does get the 9.4 like I think that it can, the fair market value of a graded 9.4 from CGC is about $745, which, after cleaning and pressing and grading, leaves me with a profit of $340. So I could do nothing and just move this raw and make $240 profit, $245, or I could play a little risk. This was in my to-be graded pile, but it just as easily could have wound its way into my move raw pile. Very nice. Couple more examples here I wanted to give you. Now we got Showcase 31. Now this is an interesting book because it is a key, and it's actually quite an expensive key, but it's an oddball one. It's the second Aquaman solo story ever. If it was the first Aquaman solo story ever, it might move pretty quickly, but it's the second. Very odd key issue here. Now, I think that this book is about a 6.0. I spent $55 on it, which is an incredible price when comparable sales raw go for about $150, sometimes all the way up into the $200 range. So if I did nothing, let's say the value of one was $175, if I did nothing, I could make $120 on this right here and now. But perfect example, if I wanted to get this graded, this is a underappreciated DC key where all the value seems to be in the 7.5, 8.0, the much higher grades. In fact, even if this got a respectable 6.0, there's just such a sharp drop that frankly, I'd probably only be able to get $200 out of this. So after cleaning, pressing, and getting it graded, it gets a 6.0, I could sell it for $200. I still would be making a profit. The profit would be about $100, $105. But if I just do nothing and sell it for what about 6.0 goes for, the profit's about $120. There are many examples just like this where sometimes getting something graded might actually not be as valuable after all the cleaning and pressing and grading than just moving it raw. This is a great example. Second to last example, we got The Atom #3. It's the first appearance of Kronos. I spent $45 on this book. Do you see the trend here? I keep buying books under fair market value because I try to make sure the hobby funds itself. So you don't see me spending at the fair market value too much. It's a book valued at $100 and I got it for $45. This is why you want to go to flea markets and yard sales, because stuff like this isn't going to happen at a con, it's not going to happen on eBay, and it probably won't happen at a comic book shop. If I do nothing, I try to move this book raw, I could make a $55 profit if this sells for $100. Now, despite this being, in my eyes, a fairly notable key, it's the first appearance of Kronos, it is another one of those oddball DC keys, and you run into this with Silver Age DC more than you do with Marvel, because everybody collects Marvel. With DC, some of the Silver Age stuff, you kind of need it to be like a 7 or more. So let's say this book gets a 6.5. I could probably sell it for about $150. I could still make a profit, but my profit after cleaning and pressing everything is about $55. Notice how that's the exact same amount I said that if I do nothing, it's a $55 profit. I bought it for $45. I could sell it for $100 raw and make $55. Or I can get it slabbed, cleaned, and graded, and it's worth about $150, but I spent to get all of that cleaning and grading, I'm probably going to make $50 to $55. For me, this one would go in the move raw pile. Last example, and my favorite of the bunch, it is another Silver Age key here. This time, it's the first appearance of The Question. That is one of the favorite books that I've picked up recently, and I'm happy to show it for you here today, which is in Blue Beetle #1 from Charlton Comics. It is the first appearance of The Question. Now, I paid $250 for this book. I think this grade, after a clean and press, could be an 8 or an 8.5. I'm actually not joking. This thing is weirdly nice, right? So, when I look up the raw values, I see that I can actually double my money just from doing nothing, right? This could easily go for $500. It's close to near mint minus. It's about a very fine plus book. That's spectacular for this book of its notoriety, and it could go pretty easily for about $500. What's the risk of trying to get it graded? By the way, that's a $250 profit raw. If I were to try to get this graded and it got not even an 8.5, let's say it got the 8.0. A graded CGC 8.0, which I feel confident that it could get, is currently sitting at about $695. That would leave a profit of, after cleaning and pressing, $395. I could do nothing and make $250, or I can send this one in to get graded, and there is such a steep climb between the raw and the high graded copies of these, and that'll happen a lot with Silver Age, that it is so notably obvious that this one is one you would get graded, that this would absolutely wind up in my clean press and grade pile. For the record, even if this book only got a 7.0, I would still be profiting about the same amount of money, that $250, if I tried to move it raw. To sum up, folks, there's a lot of factors. Is it Marvel? Is it DC? Is it a Gold Key? Is it a Dell comic? Is it Silver Age? Is it brand new? Is it Bronze Age? Copper Age? A lot of times, especially with Marvel Silver Age, if it's on the higher grade of things, all day, pretty much, you would want to get that graded. But the more mid-range it seems to get, it gets a little bit blurred between, is the risk going to work out for you, or should you just try to move it raw? Again, with like brand new books, a lot of those books are 9.8 heavy, and if they don't get the 9.8, you might suffer a bit. It might be better to take your 9.4, 9.6, 9.8 contender and try to move it at just the fair market value of that book going on at the time. And of course, you could always be a jerk and go on eBay or set up at a con and put double or triple the price of these books, but I think you'll find it's not going to actually sell, and you're just going to be wasting your and everyone else's time. There are just books you want to move raw according to the current fair market value raw, and there are books where it is worth it, that even getting it graded, you can go for it. You can try to get a big profit. Anyway, guys, that's a little bit of my psychology of what goes into this. I hope it was helpful, and as always, keep on hunting.